Hello, I am Natalia Wojtkowiak and you are listening to the Manage the Problem podcast. I create this place for owners and decision makers of small and medium-sized manufacturing companies. In this podcast, I talk openly and specifically about the problems of production industry. I explain complex issues related to production management in simple language. I advise on how to create optimized processes and effective teams. This is podcast created by practitioner for practitioners. Let me be your guide and the Manage the Problem boat that will take us to the waters of practical knowledge and proven solutions. I hope you are ready. Manage the problem. The company finds and employs specialist who then works often and almost as a PM. Why does this happen so often and on large scale in manufacturing industry? Does your company do the same? What is the reason for this? Can we change this and how? I think this will be a very important episode. Let's manage the problem. In the vast majority of companies I have had contact with it, the situation is the same. At the stage of publishing job offer and recruiting candidates, the company slowly and carefully looks for desired skills that attract attention and experience that made a diamond. I should also add that multi-stage, time-consuming and seemingly endless task tests and recruitment interviews are become more and more fashionable, so that finally when the specialist game comes into the hands of company, it is thrown into the bag, becomes an ordinary stone and disappears. And he shouldn't, I guess. I truly believe a specialist in a field in manufacturing company should be like a lens. See problems with a fresh and experienced eye, and thanks for your knowledge and the knowledge of problem, propose solutions and support their implementation. She should be a new strong element of the team and support it. Such a person should bring a breath of fresh air, mix her knowledge with a company's know-how, and compare her experience with the problems of her area of specialization. But not only there, but mostly. And many people, many specialists have such skills, but they don't have a chance to do it. I call this method of managing human potential the tight hands syndrome. What does it look like in practice? The recruitment process gives the impression that the production company which you applied is a self-aware organization and it's looking for a substantive support for its activities. They aren't looking for just anyone. After all, so many stages aren't aimed at finding the best candidate. You join the company and after just a few weeks, no one is interested in your experience or your idea for solving problem, and no one asks for an answer like it was before. Instead of bringing value to the company, you are pushed without thought or direction by stream the current problems, political games between departments, close to the new things, tests and changes. Even small ones. For a specialist in your field, you become another manager, leader or engineer. You fade away together with your enthusiasm, ideas and energy. Sound familiar? I have seen this process many times among my colleagues and I have felt it on my own skin several times. And it hurt. And this topic was often analyzed over a beer after work or at a meeting at work because it is a waste. We distinguish 7 wastes in a lean manufacturing philosophy and 1 additional waste of untapped human potential. And today's episode is about one of its aspects. Because what do you really lose by doing this? In my humble opinion, it's more than it looks like. Okay, let's start from the beginning. You are conducting the recruitment and onboarding process, which are expensive process with a low or delayed return on investment for your company. Additionally, as I said earlier, the recruitment process is so long and complicated that it often makes it seem more serious than it actually is. So this build attitude and motivation that there will be for sure do something really professional tasks, that this production is ready for it, and we as a company need only the right person for this job. Then this right person for this job enters the company, encounters its realities, and despite her strength, ideas and experience, it's trampled to the ground by the real situation that no one wants to change, for real. and he leaves, either officially submitting his/her resignation or quietly, unnoticed, doing the minimum. And at this point you spend, because I can say you invest money on recruitment and implementation. And if the specialist lives in a second mentioned way, quietly, for months, making about 20-30%, you continue to lose this money. But the financial loss isn't only in this aspect. Time passes. New person or several professionals has joined and nothing has changed in your production, in your team. In fact, it's changing for worse. Problems are increasing, the motivation is increasing, conflicts are emerging. I don't know where this belief comes from, but some owners and managers, and I don't want to generalize here, but they are even convinced that the people are stupid, blind, and will endure it. I may suspect a factory or a plantation owner in 19th century of such thoughts, but not in a 21st century in Europe. A new person comes, confirms with his/her observations all the observations of people already working there, adds a new few ones because it's normal, and above all comes with a plan on how it could be changed, and these ideas aren't devoid of sense and reality. And yet you, decision makers in company, do you believe that people are blind, and you yourself are blind and deaf to solutions very often too. This is really tragedy of our industry. And again, you lose opportunities for new ideas, new solutions, for which finally you are paying, and motivation and trust of your teams and employees. I digress here, because there are two solutions. Either you demand commitment from people and you give a space for this creativity, or you expect only blind and silent obedience that follows your decisions. And information for you, these options aren't combined. And there is little talk about it in our industry, but after the time, trust is the most valued currency. And this company policy makes your brand lose value, not only in the eyes of one person, because this is usually not a problem, but many people who share their opinion. And this opinion builds or ruins your brands as an employer. I think it's worth thinking about it. And there may be several reasons why this happens. Perhaps in your company. First, your company says it wants change, but it isn't ready for it. The reason for this may be too little work on building awareness of company. The change and development they represent may not be a part of company's DNA. This is a process that needs to be created and implemented, and it is certainly a very demanding and difficult process. Reason number 2. In your company, there is a middle-level leadership positions that inhibit or even eliminate such attitudes, initiatives, and people. And you, as the owner or executive, don't notice it, or what is the worst, and beyond reason, you allow it. Here's the really need to analyze why this is happening and implement significant changes as soon as possible. Another reason that isn't talked about, but which in my opinion is super important and could change a lot, is invisibility and absence of HR in companies' processes. Because the HR department is activated when you need to hire or fire someone. But what about in the meantime? HR should support in building employer-employee relationships, should be prevent and resolve conflicts, and should constantly monitor well-being and be perceptive in spotting management talents. That is often missing in many companies. It doesn't matter whether your company has 50 or 500 employees. The tight hand syndrome is just dangerous and affects your company result and its image among employees, old ones and future. But it influences something else that isn't talked about often in our industry and certainly not loudly. Lack of even basic attention on needs of employees and give them the opportunity to develop, or even opposite, downplaying the topics and blocking activity. It's one of factor of burnout and even depression. And unfortunately, I know what I'm talking about, and take my word for it. check next episode of Manage the Problem podcast. I will also be grateful for any substantive feedback, positive comments, and sharing this episode with others in our industry. I want this podcast to be a value and interesting for you. You can find me on LinkedIn. See you in next episode. Manage the Problem. Natalia Wojtkowiak.